Hey, Planeswalkers, Mythras here. I am ecstatic to bring you some fun new collaboration content here with our very first Charizard James. And before he introduces himself, I do want to give him some kudos because, one, he's been a slight mentor to me in getting up my Twitch going, and additionally, leveraging some of his content for what we're seeing here today is kind of that structure. So super excited about that. Appreciate you tuning in as well, everyone, and I'm super thankful that James is here to talk a little bit about himself. We're also going to cover some of the meta game and then cover off on some fun QA, you guys. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to James to kick it off here.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about the metagame too, because I like that kind of thought process, and I like thinking about stuff beforehand and then building my deck accordingly. But I'm going to go ahead and start with talking about myself. I don't really usually, talk about myself that often, but you're giving me the opportunity to, which is awesome. Thank you, Mythras. My name is Charizard James on Twitch. I also have a YouTube channel where I put a lot of my Twitch VODs and other YouTube videos. I also do a Streamcast podcast, which is a podcast based around a lot of other streamers and interviewing them and finding things about them that you wouldn't usually find you wouldn't usually find out about them during their actual streams. Like Strider Stone, we've interviewed Alias V. We're going to be interviewing Mythras here in a little bit. Just a lot of different streamers, DZ MTG, to find out about them, even Deathsea, about kind of a little bit like who are they behind the scenes? What do they do before they started streaming? Where have they lived? Where do they live now? What do they eat for breakfast? Like certain things you want to find out about streamers that you won't really find out about watching their streams. We also do a stream league as part of my content, as well as a 32 streamer only, invite only tournament where all the streamers that you like to watch battle against each other. And I've hosted it with Zabricus, if you've heard of her before, and Covert Go Blue, which you probably heard of before. Crow's won the last one, if you've heard of him, and it's just a really fun time and watching the best of the best streamers battle it out against each other, which is something that I really, really enjoy doing. I love, a part of my brand and concept is I love bringing streamers and content creators together. That's one of the reasons why I really like working with Mythras, is that's one of my main goals, is to just the rising tide raises all ships, if you will, and I love bringing streamers together in a good way. There's a lot of times where streamers might be like, toxic towards each other and things like that, but I really love the aspect of just bringing everyone together in a good way. Because if you like my content, you might watch Mythras and like his content. If you watch Mythras, you might watch DZ's content or whatever. Even other streamers like Cover Go Blue. And I just love bringing streamers together. So that's my main thing. But we can go into the talk about Magic, because that's what I love to do as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, James. And obviously, like I said, I think we have some brand unity there in terms of bringing collaboration and content creators together, and so glad that you're here. So as you mentioned, I know several of you follow and really like the weekly meta analysis that we've done. And as James talked about, I'll just give you a quick briefing between both standard, best of one, best of three, and also some of the historic stuff going on with the new drop here this past week. We did see some hiccups with Wizards, but it happens. There's nothing like a technical glitch once in a while. So, but life still goes on, my friends. So quickly, in terms of best of one, what we really saw was this fall. And as James mentioned, probably a big push from Covert Go Blue, where Mono White Life Gain's becoming one of the top played decks, has one of the best win rates. And we talked about how you can beat that in best of one by playing Sultai Ultimatum. And then in terms of best of three, again, a lot of changes came out of the Kaldheim Pro League weekend, but we've continued to follow those things. And what's really happened is that Sultai Ultimatum deck really pulling up and taking a big part of the meta. Now, surprisingly, though, Mono Red Aggro or Snow Aggro is still at the highest win rate deck. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on. I'm excited to hear what James has to say about that piece. And then in terms of the historic stuff, we continue to see Orzhov Auras and Jund Sacrifice at the top, with Selesnya Angels being a big newcomer there for both best of one and best of three. But then the other fun one that James and I were talking about ahead of time was Mono Green Elves. So very excited to see what he's thinking and what you guys should be playing here today.
First off, talking about standard is I think I know the real reason why mono red is still the best deck.
Why is that?
Well, not even there's the best deck right now, but maybe has the highest win rate. When you see a deck like mono white life gain getting beat by Sultai Ultimatum, there's a little triangle action that goes on here, right? If you're familiar with that concept of Magic and other card games in general, when you have a mono white life gain deck that just gets swept by sweepers, right? Or maybe it gets you know, there's the 5 mana Shadows Verdict that exiles everything with converted mana cost 3 or fewer. So you can really take advantage of playing against all those aggro decks in best of 1 by playing a control deck. And I know that Cobra Go Blue has said things like that before. You can just farm best of 1 by just playing control if you wanted to, even though aggro is still the objectively best thing to be doing in Historic if you really want to, you know, best of 1 you want to win fast. You know, so why not play a mono white deck or play a mono red deck? The reason why I think that mono red still has the highest win rate is because I think the mono white deck, even though it's an aggro deck and even though it's fast, cannot quite get the last points of damage in against Sultai Ultimatum before they can sweep the board a couple times, and maybe then they have resolve Ultimatum, and then all of a sudden they have Kiora, Best of Sea God, and Valky and Vorinclex and all these things on the battlefield. And now mono white can't come back in the game yet because they haven't closed the game fast enough. The thing about mono red is that mono red can actually close the game fast enough. Okay, you actually just land the creature on turn 3, and then you maybe have 1 or 2 creatures at the time. Slap down that Ember Cleave, and then they're at 3 life, and then they're only at like 5 mana, right? Or they Shadows Verdict you when they're at 3 life, and then you animate Faceless Haven and hit the last points of damage. So I think the reason why mono red is really good in best of 1 right now, and why you should be playing that deck, is because even though it's not as good against mono white, like mono red against mono white, I think mono white really does win that matchup because of the life gain, and maybe Skyclave Apparition if you're playing that is really, really good against exiling those Torbrands and things like that. But the reason to play mono red, maybe you can figure out the matchup towards, maybe you can clean up the matchup towards white a little bit, but you're probably really far behind, especially because of how much life they can gain. But you need to really be able to close the game super fast against Ultimatum, or else you're just going to lose. So I think that's the reason why you should be playing mono red.
No, I love it, man. That's great. And those Shadow Verdicts, man, is like done. If you're playing the aggro 3 curve, you're done. So, but one of my things that I've done, at least this season and the previous season, actually when Crokies ran the mono white life gain back in Zendikar's Rising, and some of the folks in the channel have enjoyed, I actually throw Shadow Spear in my mono red. So it's got that ability to remove indestructible, go over the top, and also drop the hexproof, which is one thing that people forget that I've had some fun with myself. But my own little spot in the meta there. But it's not going to get mass adopted or anything. But it's a fun take. But I'm right there with you.
That actually might help with a lot of damage creature. There's the 3 mana Demigod.
Yep.
Forgot the name off the top of my head, yep. But if you get that thing a Shadow Spear and you give that thing a Nevercleave,
Annex,
then all of a sudden you're gaining like 18 life.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
You can really turn the corner against the mono white deck and kind of shore the matchup that way.
That's kind of like trying to fix your combo deck, though. You're like, all right, I'm going to set this move and set this move. Okay. Annex is good to go. He's got Cleave, he's got Shadow Spear, and we're gonna gain 20 life, my friends.
Yes. But you think you can gain life, watch this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what's your take? I know we talked a little bit about standard now. We have a lot of people that play Historic too, and we saw the recent new drop, and obviously all glitches aside, what's kind of like your thing to be playing, or your thoughts there with also the Euro ban? I mean, that was a big deal, and we're seeing a lot of shift as well there.
Like with Euroban, we see the shift of Sultai midrange not being played anymore, because that's Uro was like the major glue piece to that deck. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of decks like that are kind of aggro, kind of mid-range, but also have a proactive game plan. But also with the proactive game plan, they have interactive elements too. So those are actually the kind of decks that I like to play. We see a lot of Rakdos Arcanist decks with the Thoughtseize on turn 1, turn 2 play Dreadhorde Arcanist, turn 3 play a spell, flashback the Thoughtseize, and then basically your opponent's playing on a 4-card hand at that point, or a 3-card hand, and then it just spirals out of control with Kroxa and Luris and all these different cards. So that's a really kind of like a deck to watch. But we also see a lot of like I call it the masochist deck. It's the I like to hurt myself deck with the new historic Anthology 4 coming out with Death Shadow. And now Death Shadow is a really powerful card in Modern because there's so many cards, including fetch lands, that hurt yourself as well. Like fetch into a shock is already -3 life. But you also have bolt lands now with Agadeem's Awakening and Shadow Skull Smashing to kind of hit yourself for 3. And then you also have If Near Dead lands and all those type of cards in Historic that also you pay 1 life for each of those cards that you even a land that you tap, even you take a life every time you tap the land. So we see a rise of Death Shadow now. There's so many people trying different Death Shadow decks, from Orzhov to Mono Black to Rakdos with Death Shadow in there. And the build that I've seen do the best so far is actually Mono Black with not even playing swamps like regular swamps. Yeah. It's playing just all shock lands, but it's just every card in the deck is just black. Every card is black. It's mono black, but it plays a whole bunch of shock lands that they don't even use the other mana.
That always makes me nervous, man. That's like, I know the life is a resource, but I'm always one of those ones that's just like too timid. I like being on the life gain side. Let's just go the other way with the Selesnya Angels. I'll just go that way, man.
Yeah, with Death Shadow, you can't be scared to go under like 8 life, right? Because when you go under like the 10 life threshold, that's when Death Shadow becomes a real problem. Especially it makes it hard to race. If you can't kill the Death Shadow deck and you put them to like 2 or 1 life, then all of a sudden Death Shadow is like a 10-10 or something, and they have 2 of them on the battlefield. Or they bring it back with Luris, and the game's just really over at that point. Now we have a cool dichotomy within Historic of those type of decks with the Death Shadow and Arcanist decks, and you can even group the Jund and Rakdos Sacrifice decks into that. You can also go the other way into the more tribal decks. I'll point out the theme with these decks in a second that I think are the best decks in Historic. You have the Selesnya Angels deck, which is basically just mono white angels splashing for Collected Company. And I think that's it. It's literally mono white angels and splashing Collected Company. Yep. So we'll call it Selesnya Angels. But that deck what you said, can gain life in a literal, the most hurry you can think of hurrying, right? If I can't even. You can go from like 8 life to like 47 life in 1 turn.
Yep.
And it's just like, sometimes it just feels like it's not even fair.
The mirror match isn't fun either.
Yeah. I've seen clips on Twitter and things of like 987 life in the mirror match against someone else with like 1,340 life. And the way that that people have won those matches.
How?
By literal timer.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The matches are so back and forth with so much life that you just have to play faster than your opponent and win off the timer. It's weird. But that's the mirror match. But against other matchups, you want to make sure in Historic, if you do play Historic, that you have a linear game plan. Even if it's aggressive, if it's a control strategy or whatever, you want to be able to have a proactive linear game plan in Historic, or else you're just going to get rolled over by other decks.
Yep.
Speaking of getting rolled over, one of the decks that we've talked about that you mentioned earlier was the mono green elves deck. Now this deck is very, very, very powerful, and it does one thing. It does that one thing very, very well.
Yeah.
If you want a quick deck to get into Historic, I don't even think there's a lot of rare wild cards. I think it might be pretty expensive to make because but it's budget Historic, if you will, because there might be a lot of rares and mythics in the actual deck, but the lands are just green.
Yep.
So at least you don't have to get a whole bunch of shock lands and pathways and a whole bunch of other things. But this is going along with, again, the theme of what I was saying about having a linear game plan, or else you're just going to get beat. If you don't have a linear game plan, say you're playing like kind of like more of a convoluted deck, like say a Esper Doom Foretold or something like that, where you kind of have to have some pieces come together. Yep. Even though you can have some great games and it can be super sweet, right? You have to like get certain pieces together. You have to have your Doom Foretold, and you have to have something to sacrifice, and you also have to not die by that point in the game, and then you have to play your Doom Foretold and also not die the turn after you play the Doom Foretold. So there's a bunch of things that have to kind of go into place in different pieces of the puzzle, and if you're playing the pieces of the puzzle types decks, you're just going to get rolled over hard by those decks like elves that go turn 1 Llanowar elves, turn 2 1/1s, turn 3 buff them all, turn 4 buff them all. Then you're just going to die. which is the reason why I think in Historic that you need to have a linear game plan, and you need to be not. You don't have to be as aggressive as possible. You don't have to be mono red. You don't have to be mono green else, but at least have even linear might not even be the best term for it, but have a proactive game plan.
Yeah, I think you need to lock it in like turn 3 or 4. So whether you're early game or late game, you got to have the puzzle pieces built. Like there was the artifact combo deck there for a while that was doing really well. I'm blanking on it with Kaldesh. And then what I do find interesting though is, to your point on the mono green elves, is that there is actually a big void on mono red right now. There used to be like 6 months ago mono red burn, and a lot of these decks I feel like you could still run that strategy, you don't see it. So it's a great take that you got there. Absolutely.
I think I know why you don't see mono red. It's because of a lot of people playing Celestial Angels.
Yeah, that's probably you
can't beat Celestial Angels with mono red. You might as well scoop the game before it starts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same as standard, right? Life gain versus direct burn.
yeah. So yeah, I did want to touch on a little bit of historic control decks. If you like to play control, you still need to have a proactive linear game plan. Mm-hmm. Okay, so even in control decks, your turn 4 has to be either if you're playing red in your control deck, like saying Jeskai control, it has to be that sweeper on turn 3. It has to be that Sweltering Suns, right? Or it has to be that Anger of the Gods on turn 3. Into turn 4 Planeswalker, turn 5 Planeswalker. Like you have to be able to like play your deck even if your opponent wasn't playing an aggro deck.
Yep.
Even if your opponent was playing control deck, you need to be like card after card after card after card, turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or else you're going to lose to any deck in Historic. Every deck in Historic, it has the tools to win. It's the matter of, is the deck tuned enough to win on curve or or by a certain turn, or what's the actual game plan? If you go into Historic not having a real game plan, you're going to lose.
Yep, absolutely. What do you think of the 9 Lives deck? I always get questions on that one when I do my tier lists, and so I've been hearing the Vorniclex 9 Lives combo too. And have you ran into any of that stuff going on?
I have not run into any of that. I think it's pretty rare, but I don't want to run into that. I can just tell you that right
now. There's not enough enchantment removal that people play a lot of the time. So you hit the 9 Lives deck. There's like 2 outs. You have a lot of people forget Bone Crusher. So Bone Crusher is my favorite. You hit him with Bone Crusher, and you can do lethal or Questing Beast. So I mean, unless you're running like the Gruul stuff, you're pretty much hosed a lot of times when it comes to the 9 Lives decks.
Oh yeah, especially if you're playing, I don't know, elves, and elves or mono red or anything, and they go turn 1, or they go turn 3 9 lives, and then survive your hit, and then turn 4 Solemnity.
Yep.
Then you might as well just skip it up.
Yeah. And that's like, all right, let's go find the one where I get the 7 life and I pull it again in 3 turns, it's game over or whatever. I'm blanking on that card, but yeah.
There's a special place in the opposite of high for you people that play that play the Solemnity deck. I mean, some people. I mean, I'm not one of those. I don't know if you are.
I don't play that deck. No.
There is a special place for those people that kind of just like for your opponent to not do anything. But hey, this is Magic. You get to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Regardless of what other people think.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest combo player. I'm more linear. But I did give the Teamer, I'm blanking on it now, combo a shot, and I thought that one was pretty good, where you just keep populating all the guys, and then you swing in with the 4/1, and then go again, kind of a thing. I'm blanking on it right now.
The Tuck Rubber Fort deck?
Yes, that one. Yep.
Yeah. That was a very popular deck about a few months ago. Yep. It kind of fell off of favor because there's a lot of things that do interact with that.
Yep.
In Historic, a big thing right now is Graph Digger's Cage, and Graph Digger's Cage does stop that.
Yep.
So you have to have like a bounce spell, maybe a Brazen Borrower, maybe an Abrade, different things like that to get rid of it before you combo. So it's a real hindrance for that deck. So I think if you're playing a deck right now that's not a very top tier deck, like Rakdos Arcanist, or maybe even Jund Sacrifice, decks that do lose to Graph Digger's Cage. If you're playing a deck that loses to Graph Digger's Cage, it's not one of those 2 decks, you should probably not play that deck if you're trying to like win at the highest level. But you can still have fun with whatever you want to play with in Historic.
Absolutely. My favorite's when I see people pull their standard decks up and play in Historic.
Oh, that reminds me, actually. That's actually a good thing to talk about. There was someone who do you remember in the late stages of Zendikar, before this new set came out? There was that Gruul deck that just played the the 2-mana elemental that has landfall and then plays all the adventure creatures and Vivian and Great Engine stuff. Yeah, like the regular Gruul deck, right?
Yep.
Someone accidentally took that into a historic MTG Open tournament, like the actual $2,000 tournament.
Yeah. And
they won the whole thing.
Woo! I'd like that. That's a good accident.
Deck in historic.
That's a good accident, man.
Yeah, it's a great accident. That made me rethink what I thought about that deck. I was like, wait a second. Wait, this deck did what in historic? This is a standard deck. There was no collected company in the deck, no like actually good lands, no stomping grounds or anything. Wow. And just wrecked historic with a standard deck.
That's like me walking in the gas station buying a lottery ball ticket and actually winning something. That'd be my luck.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like my hot take.
Awesome.
It's not even a hot take.
No, it's great.
Take.
No, I love it. So what's then, you know, if you had one deck to choose for both standard tomorrow or today, and also historic, what would be your recommendation to play? Because I get that question all the time. What are you playing? You know, what if you were to go to a tournament, if you were playing the Pro League, what would be the deck? Minus thinking of everyone else, what they're playing, but what would you play?
All right. Depends on what kind of player you are. So I'm going to name two decks. Because for me, I can play any deck, but and the two decks that I would mention for standard are mono white aggro and Dimir Control.
Ooh,
now Dimir Control is not good, not really that good on the ladder, but in an actual tournament, I think it's a lot better than it will be on ladder. On ladder, a control decks kind of, well, in general, control decks kind of feast on what are my answers going to be for your threats that you could possibly play.
Yep.
When you have an open deck list and you're in a big tournament, you know what your opponent can play. When you're on ladder, you don't really know what your opponent could have, so you could do things completely wrong. So when you're in a big tournament, and this actually showed as well in the Stream League that I hosted with Cover Go Blue, with Cover Go Blue and Zabricus a couple of Sundays ago, we actually showcased this exact situation here, where Dimir Control was never ever played, but in the top 4, 2 Dimir Controls were in top 4.
Yeah.
2 in the top 4. And the best of the best players were in this tournament. Andre Strasky, pro level player. We had Chris Kavartek, pro level player. We had a bunch of extremely high level players that just all lost to Dimir Control. The Dimir Control in a big tournament is a lot better than you'll be on ladder. So if you're going to be on ladder, I would highly recommend mono white. If you're in a big tournament, I would highly recommend Dimir Control or mono white. The thing about mono white is that even though it can't beat Sultai Ultimatum fast enough, in big tournaments, you'll see, if you look at some percentages, in big tournaments, Sultai Ultimatum has a sub 50% win rate.
Yep.
So, and that is because of people playing different control decks and mono red. So if you want to beat the other control decks and you want to beat mono red, you also want to be aggressive, go with mono white.
I love it.
In historic, the deck I would just go for is, I wouldn't even try to do one of those major brews right now if I was in historic. I wouldn't even play Death Shadow. I would just play Jund Sacrifice.
You play the Gruul deck.
I
cut you off there. I cut you off there, James. What was the what'd you say you'd play? I apologize.
If it was me right now and I had to pick a deck to play in historic, it would be Jund Sacrifice.
Yeah, I think so too. That's a good safety one. Nice mid range, has a lot of opportunities and everything. I'm with you, and I've been curious too on the Dimir Control stuff, because those two colors dominated Zendikar's Rising. It's not like they got bad, in my opinion, when we got to Kaldheim. And then additionally, the other one that we've been talking about forever is the hype on Doomscar. I still feel like there's a nice Azor's Control one. And we saw that this week with the Banish into Fable. I don't know if you caught that deck or not, but it's pretty sweet. It dodges a lot of stuff, so it's pretty nasty. And I'm with you on those choices, man. That's pretty good. I
did happen to catch Matt actually on his stream playing Azorius Banish into Fable.
Yep.
Which I didn't really believe in at first until he posted something on Twitter saying he went like 17-0 with it.
I saw it, yeah.
So definitely give that one a try.
Yeah. I did a video this week on it and had a lot of fun. So I'm right there with you. It's practically a enchantment deck and with Arcan, and it's super fun to make a bunch of flyers that gain life. Who couldn't complain, right? Life gain guy right here.
yeah, life gain guy right here. Yeah, who can complain with that?
I know everyone knows me as mono red.
I would, you know what I would play in historic? I would play mono. I would play Angels, And you know what? And mono white life gain. You know what I would play in standard? Mono white life gain and Archon of Sun's Grace deck. You know who we're dealing with here.
Absolutely. Anytime you see Mythras, oh, he's gonna have 200 life, man. Let's just clock him out.
and if his deck can't gain life, you know there's Shadow Spear's coming for you.
Yeah. Annex for 20.
Yeah. Annex game 20.
Awesome. Well, thank you on that, James. I love hearing about it. I would love to ask you a couple different questions. I think it's always fun, like you've talked about, learning some of the off stuff about creators, because we do spend so much time talking about these decks, talking about gameplay, talking about the lines, and talking about things like meta, but we don't spend a lot of time actually, kind of peeling back the onion, as I like to say, and getting to learn a little bit more about people. And honestly, I'm just curious, like, why, like, what's your story with Magic, or like what brought you into the community and those kinds of things. Would love to hear that.
Yeah. So what brought me into Magic actually is I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and from when I was a really small child, I collected Pokemon cards. Never played the game, just collected cards and played the Game Boy games. Then I met someone that had some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh from my friendship with him. His name was Carter, and he showed me a bunch of things with Yu-Gi-Oh. But I had just collected the cards and played casually with my brother. It wasn't until after I turned 20, I think I was 21 or 22, where I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively. I played Yu-Gi-Oh in different YCS tournaments. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's kind of like a GP, kind of like a Grand Prix, kind of like a Mythic Championship kind of thing.
Very cool.
I have a bunch of top finishes in those. I have about 4 or 5 YCS top finishes. We measure those in top 32s instead of top 8s for Magic. I also have a bunch of regional top 8s as well, which is in the regional tournaments. I have about like 5 or 6 top 8s of that. So it's coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh background. I transitioned into playing Magic because one of my best friends at the time said, "Hey, our local game store, which is coolstuffinc.com, # not sponsored." Yeah. But he was like, "Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just do this sealed event? Right? We're not doing anything else right now. There's a sealed event going on. Nothing's happening. Why don't we just like play this sealed event?" So I was like, "Oh, it's like $20, $30." He was like, "Ah, whatever. Let's just play it. It's a fun thing that we're gonna do with friends, right?" So I played it, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty fun. Oh, I like doing this. This is a cool deck." So then after that sealed event, like a week or two later, I decided I wanted to play in a draft event at Cool Stuff. So then I played draft, and my first ever experience playing in the tournament in Magic was Amonkhet, the original Amonkhet draft, and I drafted a cycling deck with Archfiend of Ifnir.
Nice. Nice.
So I played that, and then I took a break to play Yu-Gi-Oh again for like 2 years. I come back to Magic, and I don't play at all until this one tournament. It was a pre-Pro Tour qualifier. It's like called a PPTQ at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I decided I didn't play anything before this. I decided that there was this really good red-black aggro deck with Scrap Heap Scrounger and Unlicensed Disintegration and Heart of Kirin and a bunch of other cards like Glorybringer and Hazret the Fervent. And I was like, "Oh, I played Amonkhet before. Let me play this now." And it was I also played Bomat Courier and other things like that. So I threw it together, and I was like, "You know what? I'm going to revamp this red-black deck, and I'm going to make it a burn deck." So I combined the two decks together, knowing nothing about the format, and got second place in that tournament. And I was like,
well done.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, "Huh, you know what? I think I like this game." So there's a theme for me, right? I feel like I like the game, then I just go play Yu-Gi-Oh for 2 years. Yeah. And then I like the game, and then I go play Yu-Gi-Oh for 2 years again. And this happened like 3 or 4 times. Right after that tournament, I just didn't play Magic. I just went back to Yu-Gi-Oh. I get second. I make a new deck, get second place in a Pro Tour qualifier, then just go back to Yu-Gi-Oh. So then I played more in Yu-Gi-Oh, and this is a period of time where I did all my good, cool top 8 stuff. Yeah. And then the thing is, what really got me into Magic is that Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic are played at the same exact time at my game store. Oh. Like one starts at 6:30, one starts at 7. So if you play in one, you can't play in the other. You can't just like play one and the other. Yep. So I decided I was going to play Standard one time. It was at the same time as my Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, so I couldn't play in Yu-Gi-Oh. And at that time, Yu-Gi-Oh was doing a kind of like weird thing with their ban list, and it was like you didn't really know what was going to happen next, and these kind of things. And then Magic had this nice card called Niv Mizzet Reborn.
Not the Niv.
Yeah, and they also
Option
had
is.
this card called. They also had this card called Fires of Invention. And I had just found out about Twitch at the time, and I was watching Day 9 play this mono green ramp deck called Mono Green Tron, and with Nissa and Karn, Great Creator, and Ugin, Ugin the Ineffable, and a bunch of stuff. So I decided I was going to play that, and I played in a tournament and got absolutely demolished. And this is right after I top 8'd a huge Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. And I was like, if I can do really good in Yu-Gi-Oh, I can do good in Magic, right? I got destroyed in my first 2 Magic tournaments. 0-2 drop. It wasn't even 0-2 drop, right? Because I wanted to keep playing, because I wanted to learn more about Magic.
0-10.
So I just like 0-4'd. And I was like, oh, well, I might have some things to learn. And for me personally, if there's something for me to learn and I'm interested in it, I will just like go all out into learning it. So I was like, okay, I will be good at this game. I will be good at this game. So then the next tournament, I maybe won 1 match and then like 2 matches. And then all of a sudden, after like a month or 2 or 3 months, I built my Nib Mizzet Reborn deck and I was beating everybody.
Love it.
So I would just top every local. So then I got really into playing Magic. And then Arena came out. So not just came out. Arena was already out a little bit at the time, but I found out about Arena and actually got a computer that could play Arena. So then I, a couple months into playing Arena, after I could get like enough wild cards to make certain decks or whatever, I had this nice Jund mid-range deck with Rekindling Phoenix and Assassin's Trophy and like Explore creatures and stuff. I played against Crokies.
Nice.
And I won.
Ooh, that's better than my win, right?
and that same exact day, I played against Crokies multiple times at this point, but that was the first time I played against Crokies, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm playing against a streamer. And at this point, he wasn't even like a huge streamer yet. He only had like 800 to 1,000 viewers instead of like the 3,000 he does now.
Yeah.
But I beat him, and I turned on his stream after I beat him, and he was super mad, and I was like, yes.
That's the best.
And that same exact day, I was super close to Mythic. I was like Diamond 1, and I kept going back and forth between Diamond, and I was like, I had this thing. You'll know about me. Like I have to succeed in what I'm doing, right? So I was at Diamond 1, and I kept like falling back to Diamond 2, and then going back to like 1 win to Mythic, going back to Diamond 2. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And then that one day that I played against Crokies, I was in that like back and forth kind of thing, and then I finally hit Mythic on that same day that I played against Crokies. So after I hit Mythic, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this thing. I had already been watching streamers at the time, and then I had got a new computer, and then I started streaming.
That's awesome.
And then 6 months later, here I am.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you what was that bridge into the content creator, and you already read my mind. That's.
I knew you were going to ask me already. I knew you were going to ask.
Yeah. No. Third eye, then I bet.
The bridge into being a content creator was kind of like easy for me. It's not easy. Okay, it's really hard, and you can attest to this too. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's honestly just easier just to go to work every day, just go to your job and do what you've always been doing.
I agree.
Like, because at that point it's just autopilot. But when you're streaming, you have to make decisions, and you have to like look at like different things and where you can improve, and no one's going to improve for you. You have to do it all yourself. And day 1 of my stream, actually day 0, because I hadn't streamed yet. I had worked that day, and I came home, and I was like, I was about to turn on some streams, right? I was about to turn on some Crokies, or turn on some Jeff Hoagland, or turn on some other streamer, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stream today. And
nice.
I didn't even know I was going to stream that day, but I was like, I'm going to stream today. So I downloaded everything I had to download, and I just turned on my stream, and guess what? I didn't realize that no one could hear me. So on my first day, I had to talk to my Twitch chat, which is only one person. One of my friends that decided they were going to watch me on my first stream ever, right? One viewer, first stream ever, one viewer, and it was one of my good friends. He's a mod on my channel now, and I couldn't actually talk to him, and he couldn't even see me either. I didn't have a webcam.
I can't hear you, bro. I can't see you. What are you streaming?
He couldn't hear me. All he could see was just my game screen. I figured that one out. I figured out how to show my game on the screen, but not my face, no webcam. I didn't even have a webcam to even show, and no one could hear me. So what I did was I had to talk into my own Twitch chat and talk to him in chat on my own Twitch chat. I had to do that. But then what the thing is every single day that went by, you get better and better and better after each day. So the second day, I worked from home at the time, and I had a work headset. I was like, huh, this has a USB. Maybe this can work for my computer. Nice. So I plugged it in, and I could talk to my chat through my my work headset, which that ended up working. I actually didn't end up getting a webcam until after I hit affiliate.
Wow.
I had three average viewers. I had like 3.8 average viewers, something like that, over like the week time span. I had streamed like 4 days or 5 days, and they were awful, obviously. But I managed to get the 3 viewers because I asked my fiance and my dad to watch me, and I watched myself.
I love it.
and now with my 3 viewers, it was like my dad, my sister, my fiance, and myself.
That's good.
And then we hit affiliate, and then I got a webcam. And then through constant improvements and figuring out what overlays are, and figuring out what starting soon screens are, and figuring out how to do my webcam in different ways are, and figuring out how to show my desktop on my stream instead of just my game, and figuring out what the different panels are on your Twitch thing, and describing all those things, and just doing all the small things. As long as you do something, if you want to stream and you're watching this as well, if you want to, I would recommend just do it. Just do it. Doesn't matter. Just download the freaking thing. Turn on click start streaming, and doesn't matter. Your first week, you're gonna suck. It does. I mean, unless you're actually just unless you already have a following somewhere else, like if you're already a YouTuber or something. I'm like, even you, Mythras. That was my
trick. Mine was the YouTube.
Yeah, you can. If you start out on YouTube, you already have people that follow you on YouTube and people that are subbed to you on YouTube, so they'll just watch you on your stream. But I started from literally nothing besides watching my own stream with my fiance, my sister, and my dad.
Yeah.
But I would recommend, even if you don't have anything and you're starting from nothing and you don't have anything, no one knows you on Twitter, no one knows you on YouTube, no one knew me on Twitter either. But today I have almost 400 Twitter followers, even though it's not a lot, but.
More than I got.
Starting from 0, and
absolutely.
I have like 100 and something YouTube subscribers, but you just improve day after day after day, and then eventually you'll be where you want to be.
That's awesome, man. I love not only the personal commitment, the family commitment, man. That's something. Oh, yeah. So you gotta. I'll speak from experience. You gotta have the family commitment. My wife, I'm blessed that she allows me to do these things, and it wouldn't be possible if I didn't have her support too. So it's always a community deal, and it's a big deal. So it's a lot of work, like you said, and I think that's something a lot of people take for granted, and even us too at times where. You get like you said, you get done with your work day and you still got to go stream, and you want to put on the best face, and it might not have been on autopilot day, you might have had a bad day, but it's like, I'm going to do this because we got people that depend on us or enjoy the content. And I got one more question for you here too, and just from a personal note to myself. For me during the COVID stuff, this has been a great way for me to connect with individuals, build a community. I'm, traditionally an extroverted person, I think maybe like yourself. And it's been a nice way to kind of transition and kind of stay sane, I'll say. But is there any like weird thing or something unique that you've done differently in the COVID stuff besides like being locked in a room in your house or something like that?
Any weird thing that I've done during COVID that I didn't do pre-COVID? Huh? Yeah. Not hang out with any of my friends. That's not really that weird. That's not weird, but I'll just name that. Like it's definitely a hard thing. But we'll go through different things. What's weird that I had to do post-COVID? Let's see. Something weird. I can't really think of anything weird because like when you're a gamer. Like even if I would play Magic Arena in my spare time, or play NBA 2K in my spare time, or Madden, or Skyrim, or whatever game you want to play. One of the reasons why I really wanted to start streaming too, and I didn't even mention this before, was that I was already playing Arena anyway.
Yeah.
I was playing Arena every day, regardless of whether I was streaming or not. Like I would go to work, get off of work, and play Arena, or watch a Twitch stream. But what better way to be an extrovert like me or an extrovert like you? To like do what you're already doing anyway, but also hang out with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what's really cool. And I didn't even start streaming until after COVID. So I guess a weird thing that you could say that I did post COVID was just start my stream from absolute zero.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I would say for me, like definitely the schedule changed, but now like being like I rarely leave my house, man. It's kind of crazy. Like rarely leave.
Same.
And I will tell you now, I like when I'm sleeping and I dream and someone's like next to me, I freak out. I'm like, where's their mask, man? I'm like, what's going on, dude? It's weird. It's really weird. So,
where's the mask?
Yeah, dude, it's weird. So I'm looking forward that we get beyond that and I can actually sleep peacefully and not have to worry about that crazy stuff anymore, besides everything else we got going on these days. So, but anything else that you want to share here, James, at all with anyone, or kind of closing thoughts or final thoughts? I know we've talked quite a bit here, but I hand the mic back to you here and see if there's anything else or a question that you have for me.
No, just a closing thought for me would just be that I appreciate the content that you put out. You've been putting content out a lot over the past few months, or however long you've been doing this for. I'm pretty sure it's been like, I don't know, at least 6 months, right?
Well,
or 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
All over that.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
I really do appreciate the effort that you put into doing meta analysis and finding out the best decks and looking at different websites and avenues and then making them all into your own content as well. I really do appreciate the amount of effort that you're really putting into your channel, and it really does show from the amount of YouTube growth you're seeing, eventually starting a stream or doing it more consistently or whatever in the next couple of days or months, and your family as well. You sent me a picture of your kid the other day, and it's just like a super awesome, happy like thing coming together here. And I really do think that with the amount of work that you're doing and the genuine, I don't even know how to say genuineness that you have about it.
Thank you.
And you're going to go like super far. So I'm super excited to be doing this with you, and excited what the future holds.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that. It's mutual respect, and I know you know that. So, like I said, you're my slight tech IT guy, the guy that didn't know how to turn on his webcam, but now I'm using you to help. So
right,
I'll be the Gruul aggro guy showing up to the historic tournament next week probably. But no, I appreciate everything, man. You know that, and for the community here as well. You guys absolutely check out the details down below. Charizard James's information will be there. Check out his Twitter, check out his stream, check out his YouTube. Like we talked about at the beginning, this is kind of me mirroring his concept and bringing some of his ideas together and sharing another platform and avenue for us to all connect, because we're all in this together, my friends. So I really appreciate that, James. And so my final thoughts again, thank you so much, and thank you to the community. Appreciate everyone's support. I know James does as well, and I'm looking forward to some more rubber matches on your stream here one of these days. So
exactly.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, James. Have a good one, you guys.
Like and subscribe.